Okay, so it is working now. I'm gonna mute this. Sorry, guys. Yeah, internet troubles. But basically, the plan here is to um, paint this dude. My humidifier is a little loud in the background, so let me see if I can do this maybe. I don't know if that helps. Let me know. Um, what a lovely knife. Okay. Okay, yeah. So today my hope is to paint this whole thing. Not sure if I will get through it all, um, but yeah, I have down on the bottom the Wurmspat that I have already completed. So guys like Sepsimus, um, the Lord of Plagues, and then I have black and white, or not black and white, but just a picture primed to show me where the highlights are going to hit. So mostly on his head, but a little bit here on his stomach where it sticks out, um, which we don't want to be too bright because you don't want to take away from the head, but I can see here where it's going to hit on the knee. I also have pictures on my phone for around the side, but there's just not enough room to put those on there. I also have my palette here in case anybody cares what colors I'm picking up. My dogs are going crazy in the background, but hopefully they'll be quiet enough for this to get on. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. I always start by brushing them off with a really large dry brush, just because I have dogs and I have kids and there's dust and stuff going on. So we'll get that done, and then we'll start painting. I don't know how loud this is going to be on the stream with the mixer. Hopefully not too bad, but okay. So the first color I'm putting on is going to be Bugman's Glow, and we'll just put no drops because it's clogged. So let me find the declogginator. This is going to be the one time I don't actually know where it's at. No. All the bad things happen when you do things live. I don't think I've ever had these clogged before. I think one of my kids stole my paper clip. No, it's gonna end up bad. Maybe if I do this. Okay. Well, tiny screwdriver works. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 drops of Bugman's Glow. And then Screamer Pink is the next color. I just want to darken it down a little bit because it's going to be our base coat. So we'll add, come on, 1 drop of Screamer Pink. Give that a mix. Come up with this dark pink color. Okay. And then we're just going to base coat the skin. Starting with the skin because Simon told me to paint the model inside and out. So I do that, not being too particularly careful. And my paint is super thin, so I'm going to get a little more, get some of the water off, and go back over this bit, get in his neck, in his face, and we'll even base coat his guts. His guts will probably be blue. I try to keep all of the same colors on the model that I have on the other ones, just so that there's cohesion. But we'll get down in there. I put this all together because I tried to originally paint one of these in sub-assemblies, and I wound up gluing my finger to the paint and pulled off all the paint and the primer after I had spent hours painting it, and that was super frustrating, so I'm just not going to risk that again. Paint's starting to dry out on my brush, so clean that there. I'm also trying to get out of the habit of licking the brush. So if you see me do it, call me out, because it's not something that I want to be doing. Oh my goodness, and my hand is always in the way, so I need to paint from an angle like this. Good to know. It's nice to see someone paint rather than sanding a nub. That's good to hear. Chris paints. I've seen him paint. And we're not trying to get this to, well, display quality. We're trying to get it to tabletop quality, but I'm learning that tabletop quality means different things for different people. And paint's starting to dry in the brush again because it's starting to splay. I'm trying to get it to the quality of the other ones, which I consider tabletop quality. It's probably, I don't know, it's to the best of my ability now, but not extra. Not extra. Yes, my mic is quiet, so I can turn it up more. Is that better? Okay. So here's the boring bit while we wait for it to dry. Just want to make sure nothing is too egregiously pulling. It does look like butt cheeks, but it will. I probably go a little thinner than I should. That's something that I am learning to balance, is where is too thin and where is too thick. But I don't want to go in with the second coat too early and rip paint while it's drying. So this is going to be slightly boring as we literally watch paint dry. I can do the tiger stripes on my thumbs. I generally use my thumb as a palette too, but it's only when I want to make sure that the paint is a certain thickness, and usually on bake, that's for like the second layers, not this layer, but like layering, actual layering of paint. So we'll get this one. I need a TED button. Slap it on, as he says. I would try to copy it, but I don't do a good British accent. Hell, I'm not even good at accents. That might not even be British. That might be some other kind of accent. Yeah. Nice and sloppy. The way Paul likes it. Okay. Back to the other side. This guy is mostly skin, and so I've been thinking about maybe adding a touch of the blue tone that I used for the guts of the Lord of Plagues. Just a hint of it in the skin to give them a little bit of variance of the ones. Sorry, this is a bad angle here, but I can't get into there with the brush without twisting it that way, so we'll try to get it back in there. I don't remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, I want to add a little bit of the blue tone to the skin so that it gives it, and I just put the paintbrush in my mouth. It gives it a little bit of tonal variance throughout them, especially since this one is mostly skin. But the thing that I am going to want to look out for is making the skin too cold. The armor is a cold blue, or not blue, geez, I know colors. A cold green, Cabalite green to be specific. So because of that, I want the skin to be warm, and that's why we're basing it with this dark pink. And we're just going to get one more coat on his body there. Not a whole lot of this color is going to be seen, so as you can see, I'm not being too neat. I promise the end result comes out a whole lot better, and I start getting a lot more careful once we get to the layering stage, but right now there's not a whole lot of need. And all this over paint, the reason why we start with the skin, I'll go back over and paint that black before we get to those bits. Don't forget his calf back here, his leg back here. I just want relatively smooth coverage. My paintbrush is starting to split again, so that means the paint is drying. Okay. Just checking for any mist spots in the recesses, because this is going to be the base of the shadow color, although the shadow color will be a little more purple as we pull it towards cool. Get real good under the belly here. Back here around his moobs. And then okay, so I think, oh, I've been neglecting the top of his head. That might have been a little thicker than I wanted. I don't know if this is in cam. This is a hard spot to paint, and it's actually tearing up my brush to do so. One thing I like about painting with the oils is that the paint doesn't dry forever, and so you don't have to worry about it drying in the brush as much as you do with the acrylics. But I'm saving painting with the oils a little further down the road when I get to something that's mostly non-metallic metal, like a Stormcast or something, because I think that's a little bit easier there. Gotta get in this little weird arm crevice, and I think I see a tiny bit. Yep, just put the brush in my mouth again. Stop doing that. Yeah, brush leaking is really bad, especially if you oil paint, because things like cadmium red, you probably don't want cadmium in your mouth. There's also a couple whites that have lead in them, and you definitely don't want to put that in your mouth. Okay, so I think that's a solid base coat here. Man, everybody's talking about McDonald's. It's right around my lunchtime, but I ate out yesterday, and that was my one time for the week. So the next thing we're going to do is take some Cadian man flesh, and is this one clogged? Nope. Alright, so I'm going to put some over here. And then we'll just kind of draw the two together, let them meet in the middle until I come up with what I think will be a good shadow color. These guys are dead, so they're gonna be pretty pale, or not dead, but you know, their skin is rotting and gross, so their skin's gonna be kind of pale. So this orangish color will make for a good shadow color, and we are just going to essentially cover everything we just painted. That's too thin. Let's get some of the water out of the brush. Okay. We'll ignore the intestines because those probably don't need to be coated with this color. We'll coat those with its own base of, what is it? The Fang, the Space Wolves Gray. So we're just basically hitting all the spots except for the holes that we just painted over. I don't know if this is in camera. Hopefully it's just a bad angle to get that part of the leg. I actually think the leg goes further down than I originally thought. We'll do that. Hopefully no one will notice. We'll all know it's there and it'll bug me, but for the sake of the stream, let's not get too crazy. Okay. We're just painting over everything we just painted, except for the deepest cracks, which for the most part are only in the holes or kind of under here. The rest of them are relatively shallow. And we're going to go back over and glaze some shadows in a little bit after the fact. Like I said, they're going to be kind of purple to match the other ones. So just to give you an idea, this is the kind of skin tone I'm going for. This one is a little yellowy, so I was thinking making this one a little bluish, but you can barely see. If you go down here, you can see some of the purple that we glazed in. So we'll glaze down after we've highlighted up, because I find it's a lot easier to glaze down than it is to glaze up. So right now we're just covering most everything. There was a point there. I lost it somewhere, and that's going to happen a lot as I do these more often. That's just kind of, unfortunately, how my brain works. It switches tracks rather rapidly, which people at work find a little frustrating, but they've learned to live with it. Or maybe they've come to terms with it, might be a better way to say that. Looking nice and sloppy. So we'll add a second coat to make it more solid, and we might have to do a third coat of this as well. Just going light and light brush pressure and fast across the model so that the paint doesn't dry and it can level a little bit. Paint his deepest cracks. Yep, the deepest one is down in here, but it's not visible. So just getting this around his guts hanging out, and then kind of around the side of his moobs here. Yeah, that's fine. The axe covers up a good chunk of what's in there. Let's make sure we get all the way over. That's seeming a little too thin. There we go. It's a fine balance once you've put the paints into dropper bottles, because you have to thin them down to get them in there. So then they're a lot thinner than they are out of the pot originally. So you have to be super careful, or at least I do. Maybe I put in too much water when thinning these down, otherwise they get too thin. But if they're too thin, you can just add in more coats. I like to do 6 thin coats. Not really, but that's usually what ends up happening, because I am very careful with how much paint goes on once we get to the layering stages, so that I can build up those gradients. Because one day, the dream is to become a display painter. Ooh, my hand is shaking bad right there. A display painter and a competition level display painter at that. I need more demons than Simon. and he's already got a head start. Oh, speaking of head starts, so officially on the 16th of this month, I will have painted my first model. That one was painted at a Learn to Paint, so I don't have it here, but here's my second one, which I painted. So he is also a Nurgle boy. So at the end of when this one is done, we'll get to see kind of how much I've progressed over a year. Hopefully it's a decent amount. I think if we look at these two together, it becomes a little more apparent, but we'll see. We'll see when we're done. So it's almost my 1 year anniversary into all of this nonsense. And it is all Fox's fault, of course. I was a Gundam builder, and I got into Gundams after watching his videos, and then he very rudely switched hobbies on me. So I had to start over almost exactly at a year after I got into the Gundam hobby. So I joke that it's about time for me to find a new hobby. I'm just adding in a tiny little bit of extra on the parts where I know the light is going to hit, even though this is our darkest color, and those parts will be layered over. I do want it to be solid. We'll double check if anything is too egregious. It's hard to tell with all these leather straps in here. Oh, I forgot his calf. So let's get that. That's still really thin. I'm going to leave the shadow in his leg pink, but we'll get the front of it with our Cadian man flesh. Meat's back on the menu tonight. Alright, so I want to say we'll hit back here because that I'm going to get a slightly darker mix of the two. This bit back here was neglected. Not that anybody's gonna see, but we'll know. We'll know. And it's the bits that you know that tend to bother you. All right, a little wet on wet blending. It's not a skill I'm good at, but I didn't want to wait necessarily for that one to dry. Okay. Just getting these last couple bits where the dark parts are shining through that may have highlights on them. I think that's good. I think that's good. You resemble that remark? Alright. So now, I gotta find my notebook. So, you can't see it, but yeah, a little notebook. Oh god, that's gonna be way too close. It's got all my paint recipes in it for the first one I did, so we're just matching that for the most part. And that's something I learned from Fox. Keep a paint journal, I believe he calls it. Alright, so now I'm going to add some Kislev flesh to the palette. And we're going to mix some more of the color we just did into the middle here, and then start pulling in some of this Kislev flesh. Now we're kind of getting closer to our mid-tone. This actually may be our mid-tone. Let me pull all of this off the brush so we don't waste it into the water. Clean that off. Oh, some paint came off, so not fully clean. Alright. So now is where we start getting a little more deliberate and selective. So we know light's gonna hit kind of along this ridge here and on the top, and it'll hit along this, the top of this ridge too, so that we can give it some volume. And you can see this is really thin paint. We'll go over these in slightly more progressively smaller layers. So get some of the watered down bit, get rid of the water on the paper towel, check the consistency on your thumb. We know light is going to hit all on this part of the belly. The shadow is going to probably start around here, so we'll pull from there up so that the paint deposits toward the top of the belly, and then we'll also pull from here out. I haven't decided if it's worth painting in a drop shadow where the axe is covering. Probably not, because this isn't, as I said, this isn't a display piece. This is, I actually am planning on playing with this army, and I can't imagine having people constantly touch your display piece. Same thing here, we'll pull from the outside to the top of his moob here. We'll leave the underside done. I can see a little bit pulling there, so just want to pull that up. We'll get this fold of his neck, and we'll get this fold of his neck. Alright. And we're just trying to give him a little volume, not paint his mouth too much. So now we can see it's starting to get lighter towards the center, and we do want to draw the eye up toward the face. I think this is still a little too thick. I need to pull from here where it's thinner. This is where my kind of glaze consistency is, or a thin layer. There we go. So same thing again, but this time we'll do less. Pulling in towards the middle and then pulling up to the top. Last time we started here, so we'll go a little bit lower than, or a little bit higher rather than that. Get more paint toward the top here. We got to be careful not to get into that crack. That's still too thick though. Okay. And then this is a weird spot. So realistically, most of this would be blocked out if the sun was above by these giant horns that I hate. And it's like the only thing I dislike about this model is these horns and this one. The two in the front would be okay if that one in the back wasn't there. I think it unbalances it. And that's well and good if you like asymmetry, but I like orderliness. It's probably why I'm drawn to Stormcasts. But I was gifted these, and I have quite enjoyed painting them. So I may be a Nurgle convert. Alright, so we're getting good volume here. I'll do one last light glaze up around this part. This transition seems a little harsh, so we're gonna just try to go in from the darker spot and pull down. And we still have some of the darker bit in the on the palette, which is why I don't just fully mix everything in case we need to go back and glaze that darker color in. But I think it's fine because we're still in the mid-tone and all of this is still going to be relatively in the light, so we probably don't have to put shadows there. And I'm just doing the front right now. I don't work around the model very well. I like to put it all in an area so I get an idea of how the shapes are going to be defined with the light, and then I go around and make the adjustments everywhere else. So I don't know if that's good or bad. It's just how I work. So if that's not the right way, please don't yell at me. I can only do it my way. And just bringing some light onto the top of the leg here to give that some volume. I think that's dry, so we'll come back in again. With the glazing, you want to be careful to let it dry completely before you start reglazing, otherwise you'll tear the previous layer. And on this guy, not that big of a deal because he's gross and he's got a lot of weird skin issues going on here, so you wouldn't notice it that much. But if you want something to be like nice and pristine like a Stormcast, then you would not be pleased on that. I think the shadow, or not the shadow, but the light as it comes down from the top kind of runs along this, since it's a cylinder right down the middle. So we'll just pull a highlight into the middle here, and then on his hands we just want to go hit the, it's kind of a flat shape, so the light will go down towards the bottom. So we'll pull it down towards the bottom here, make sure we're hitting the knuckles so that we get the volume there. I'm just trying to catch the lip tops of these fingers just so that they're more seeable, and then we'll put a little bit more emphasis too on the top part of the hand here because the light will hit that. And this is based purely off of nothing. I am making up light rules as I go, and they seem to have worked so far, so I assume they're correct. On this one, the light will probably run along the back because it's on the top and this arm is pulled forward. So I'm just going to pull the highlights toward the back here, and then up from the top. We want to show he's not super muscular, but he does have a little bit of his tricep working here. His bicep is mostly flab. And my brush is starting, the paint's starting to dry out on the brush, so we'll just clean that off as it's behaving a little weird. Check the paint consistency, maybe a little thicker. Okay. Alright, so onto the back. We want to create volumes, so we'll pull here. But actually, we'll go light back here with this color, but I think we're going to not go as light with the other colors. He's hunched over, which makes for a hard pose. Not a whole lot of light would really hit his stomach, since he's hunched over the way he is. But if we really, and his back would be lit up if the light was coming from the back, but if we really lit up his back and didn't put a lot of light on the front, then most of the focus is going to go to the back, and nobody wants to look at this dude's back. So we are purposely going to put less light on his back, even though realistically there would be more, and more on his front to keep the front visually interesting. Also, not a whole lot of light would be getting in here too, but I'm just trying to create some volumes with the mid-tone, since there's like a divot here, and also because I'm guessing that's due to the kind of armor squishing up his fat. So, and we want the top of his head to be super bright and shiny. Maybe we'll hit the back one more time with "It works how I say it does." Nice. Well, thanks for that. Yeah, that's kind of the thing that that I'm learning with fantasy models, especially. If you try to paint them really realistically, they look super muted, and it's really hard to tell what's going on. And so you got to take some liberties if you want things to look good fantasy wise. Also, it could just be due to the size too. I bet if I painted a bust, I could probably be more realistic. And this paint is a little thicker than I wanted. Oh well. Hopefully we can fix that. But I'm not allowed to paint busts because Paul said he'd take out my kneecaps, and I like walking. So we paint minis instead. Plus, until I win a sword anyway, I need to focus on minis. That's the goal. That's the goal. Alright, so this part is rounded up top here, so I just want to give a little bit more highlight on this round part to give it some more volume. We're going to put some more volume around the edges of these, because the light would be down the center here. And the front. Okay. Now I'm just being nitpicky, which is probably not what you came here to see. Okay, so I think he's got some good shape. We've got a good transition here from the real dark underneath his belly into more light, and we're just going to add more Kislev flesh into the mix here, so we get an even lighter version of the color we used. And we're going to rinse and repeat what we did, just on a smaller scale. Okay, and let's get here. One thing I want to get is this flap that's folded over. I missed that on the last one. Yeah, okay. So We'll get to this lighter color, and the thin. And we're gonna come in, bring it toward the center of his stomach here, and up. Catch around. That's not dry. I shouldn't have touched it. What did I just say? Do as I say, not as I do. Otherwise you'll rip the paint like I just did there. Not a big deal. We're gonna come down a tiny bit. Again, this part, I'm not 100% sure what to do because it should be blocked out by light, but I'm trying to pull views up to the head. So if I leave this bit dark, especially with these horns, the horns will be dark coming into light. I don't know that. I think you would look out, so I want to put some brightness in there even if it doesn't make 100% sense. I'm just gonna stipple a tiny bit of light into there. Get here. Get some emphasis on the top part of the moob. I will say this harness he's wearing looks extremely uncomfortable, but Nurgle gives you that feel no pain, so I guess that's why they don't mind a bit. I also wonder too, and maybe you guys will be able to tell me who are kind of lore masters. I'm just getting the top of the chin and the top of the jaw here just a little bit with the edge of the brush. I'm gonna paint his mouth kind of blue because that's what I did on the other ones, like his lips blue. I was actually so originally when I started this I was gonna look at what bloated dead bodies look like, so maybe like ones that people who have drowned, but I am not trying to give myself nightmares, and that is not my jam, so I decided it's all gonna be what I think it should look like and not based on anything real, because yeah, I mean I don't even like horror movies, or I like horror movies at their like psychological base. So one I really like is The Orphanage. It's all in Spanish and subtitled, but it doesn't have gore. Like I really like the first Saw film as well, when they were just locked in that room and it was really creepy and it seemed like that was a thing that could happen for real. But then as they went on, they just got more and more kind of shock you with grossness, and I can't do those very well. I'm not going to highlight the top of the leg too much, again, because I don't want that to pull away from the face. And the armor is relatively subdued compared to the skin if we put these guys side by side, and I'm painting off camera, so I apologize there, guys. I'm like way too high maybe. Yeah, so the armor is relatively subdued compared to the skin, so that knee pad won't be all that bright, and if the leg is super bright it just seems not good. I don't know, I could be totally wrong though. What do I know? I'm a noob. I'm just having fun. That's what I think it's Roman Laplat's big thing is all about, happy painting and just enjoying yourself. So I'm just gonna put a little touch on here in here and the cracks here. We're still not close to the highlight yet. We're in the like upper half of the midtones, but the highlights are what's gonna pale them out a lot. And that's where I may or may not add blue. Not like a McCrag blue, but blue horror, which is just a whiff of blue. And I'm gonna mix it in with the highlight color, which is Screaming Skull. Just putting a touch on the back. Again, I don't want to emphasize the back too much, but we also don't want it to be flat. So, getting that there. I think this arm needs to be highlighted a touch more because the other one is significantly brighter. Alright. So it does look like a burst of light is hitting here. And except for maybe there. Maybe we'll take some of the darkest color mixed with the base color, thin it down a lot. So nice glaze consistency, and just glaze that back a little bit. It's not perfect inside here, but I'm not going to get in there good with the brush. I guess I could take the arm off. I didn't actually glue these two in, but then I am afraid I would mess it up trying to get the arm back on, and that's how you have a bad day. And as I just said, I'm doing this for fun, for enjoyment, while the world goes crazy. This is my stress relief. I'm gonna just stipple along here to make it kind of blotchy near where the his big gashes. I don't know, is that a word you can say on YouTube? Does gash mean the same thing in there as it does here? Anywho. Okay. Alright, what's the next color? Straight up Kislev flesh. Alright. Now we are getting to the highlighty bits. So we're gonna add some water. Chris has tested the harness and says it's quite comfortable. Nice. I dig it. It's kind of like Fox's Mankini, I guess. I mean, the same level of comfort, just in there. Yeah, that seems fine. I did see a comment about using medium to thin the paints. Lamia medium, glaze medium. Even I've used contrast medium, which can be fun. Man, that was a harsh layer right here. It just looks like I painted on. So we're gonna glaze from here into that, and I didn't let it dry because I'm not thinking and may have made it worse. We'll see when we come back. Let's get around his neck. I just use water because it's convenient. I use contrast medium sometimes, but having been doing oils for a little while lately, it's, I don't know, trying to streamline everything to where it's as convenient as possible, at least for tabletop standard, right? If we get into display standard, sure, I'll go the extra mile and might even do like 20 extra glazes. But I'm hoping nobody sees this that close. And if I was that careful, I would be upset if somebody else touched my model. And people do that. I don't think etiquette says you're supposed to touch other people's models, but I don't fully know the rules. And since Underworlds is actually one of the games I play, and am currently one of the best in my area, at least at the official Warhammer stores. We've got a couple shard glass trophies. I tend to play this game a lot, and people touch my models quite a bit. Just adding a little bit. So we're pretty much not going to highlight anymore the back. We want it to be darker than the front, and you can see it's significantly darker than the front. Or I want it to. I don't know why I say we, but I want it to be darker than the front. We'll make this arm, since it's kind of up, pretty light and pale on the top part here, and then maybe just up the paleness on the back part of this arm as well. And then maybe go one more layer of Kislev flesh, and the most or at least towards the most highlighted spots. We still have a couple colors to get there, but we're getting there. Super thin strokes. May have overdone it on that one, but it'll tone down a little when it dries. Gonna stipple on this one to make his neck look a little textured and ugly. And again, just this is where I tore it. You can see it's really hard to fix, unless Simon knows. Is there a way to fix it if you tear a layer of paint, a glazed layer, other than stripping the whole thing and starting all over again? That's still too thick. Alright, that's nice and thin. We'll just hit here again. Sorry that some of this is off camera. I am still learning where I need to hold this and how to paint with the camera pointed at. Okay. And we may come and adjust these colors as we go on, but for right now, I think that's good. Let's get the top of the head, of course. Jeez, don't want to forget that. Nice shiny bald head. That's really hard to do with this angle. And we'll get just do a couple little thin. You're probably not going to be able to see these on camera because I have to hold this weird, but some really thin kind of striation lines on the top of the neck there to give it like little micro ripples for where the fat is kind of being pinched up, because well, you can't see, I got too much color on my arms, but you get little, maybe on my hand, no, you get little micro ripples and squished flesh. So we will keep highlighting. This time with Ushab T-Bone. I'm gonna mix. Sorry if that's loud. So this is a greenish white, I guess you would call that color. And now is where he starts to look pale and dead. So let's bring that up here. We're going to glaze a little further down than the last coat went for the first one, just to cool those colors off as a kind of a filter, I guess it would be called. Go and hit this neck again. Little lines here on the neck. And catch his face for sure. At least the top parts. Oh yeah. Yeah, there we go. Now he's starting to look like a bloater. Catch the edge of his moob here. And see, it's kind of around this area where I debated adding a blue tint. Let me see what that color would look like. Stop putting the paintbrush in your mouth. Bad habit. Okay, here we go. So blue horror is one of the few colors that I actually just haven't been bothered to put into a dropper bottle. Let's see what that looks like. It does cool it down a little bit. Well, YOLO, as the kids say these days. We'll put it on there. We're gonna cool him down a lot. But actually that makes a good contrast between the warmth of his folds and the highlights of his skin, although it does go into purple, which is both a warm and a cool color in my opinion. Let's see. So I want to check what this looks like in black and white. So we'll see. My white balance is having a hard time dealing with how bright he is now, huh? But I want to see. No, he is very. I think that could just be the white brightness, white balance. There we go. So it looks. Just check the back. If it's just all a giant white blob. Yeah, that just could be the camera. Alright, well, I'll take a picture of this later and put it in black and white so I can see if. Let me move this out of the way. Put this in the middle. Put this to auto. See how it adjusts. There's where it thinks it goes. Still looks like a giant white blob. Alright, well, is what it is. We will press on. But I think the blue, it's really subtle, and the Ushabti bone is already greenish. So just having a touch of it in there. We're just catching kind of now where we still have one more color to go to edge highlight with, which will be our highest highlight, but we're just really focusing on the bits you want people to look at in the highest of highlights. So he's really bright and pale in the middle, which hopefully brings your eye upwards. It also makes it harder to see, and I might have to glaze a little bluish back here, but we'll sort that as we get the other colors put on here, because I can tell you right now this looks super bright with like almost white without any of the armor or anything colored, and so did this one, and this one's actually darker than this one is, but once everything gets added on, that super brightness sort of disappears. So there's some argument of painting everything at once rather than little bits at a time, but I don't know how to do that very well yet. I can't conceptualize that. Okay. So, and I'll post a picture of this when I'm done on the boom hut, of course. So our last bit, our final highlight, so to speak, is going to be Screaming Skull, which is an even brighter color. It's got a little bit of a yellowish tint to it. Since we YOLO'd Blue Horror in last time, we're going to do it again this time. Probably shouldn't be taking paint out of the pot with my good brush, but actually I need to replace this brush. It's starting to split, and that's probably my own fault. Alright, get that super thin, get the water off, and now I'm just gonna catch the edges of the flesh here with this pale blue color and do our edge highlight-ish. I'll go around here. Okay, want to come under the move here and also catch this bit, so get that fold, come along the edge here, along the edge here. Sorry, this is a bit that takes a little bit of concentration, so it's difficult to talk. Down here, actually, well, we'll see how I feel with that after. Then we'll catch right here. I keep highlighting the edge of this leather. That is not what I'm trying to do. Clean the brush off. Get a little bit more. Alright, so we want to go kind of right along here, on the edge of the skin here, along here, Alright. So I think we've got that, and then we'll just add a little dots of highlight in here. Alright. So I think we got the skin highlighted up to where we want, and now we are going to glaze in some shadows. So let's get our Screamer pink out. Actually, we have some on the palette. I'm not going to waste more. We'll just mix up top. And then a touch of Cantor blue. Or you could use Inky by Darkness, but I used Inky by Darkness in the red. So I like the purple that this color makes. Maybe not. It's not wanting to turn the right color. So let's move that there. Let's get just, that might have too much of the other colors mixed in. There we go. Alright, so this turns to a nice dark violet shade. Let's get rid of most of this. Clean the brush out. Got a lot of paint up near the ferrule, which isn't good. But we'll get the purple and check it. Okay. So we want to get into the deep cracks here. And glaze in there. Maybe around the sores here. So just in the deepest recesses, I'm trying to get some of this purple color in. Some of the spots I missed or may have accidentally painted over. We want it in this part of the neck, and that part of the neck, and that part of the neck. He's got a lot of folds in his neck. Under his... Whoa, no, that sucked. It's alright. Brush that out as best we can. And then we just say whoops. Might give us a chance to fix any errors we made. Alright, got rid of that. That was close. Probably do another layer in just a second, just to really hide it out and come back with the highlight color. Okay, back to our purple color. We want to get where the skin folds meet here, also right along the leather. So that it looks like it's distressed. The skin is distressed or sore, maybe is the right word. And we just put a highlight right next to that. So you gotta be careful, but that'll help. We want the shadow color where two different materials meet, so it's not a super abrupt change. I want to do it under his belly here, because that's all dark. Let's come around to the side. Okay. And then we'll get some more, and we'll do the back. Oh, thanks, Raging Modeler. I know it's probably way later than you left. It's hard for me to watch the the chats as much, but I guess that's a skill you learn over time. Alright, so we're just getting more shade in here. I kind of want to add a little right in this V. Yeah, that makes that pop a little more. Under this fold, under that fold. Both of those might have been too dark, so we'll brush them out a little. Okay, and then around this bit, that'll end up blue, but I want the kind of cracks in here to be purple. And I also want to get around his calf. Okay. I'm going to thin this down even more because I want to try to bring separation in this. That is a real, maybe we'll mix this with this so it's not as abrupt. Okay. I want to try to create separation right here. Now my hands are shaking. There we go. All right. And then around the leather again. And maybe in these deeper indents of the hand to give that some, the fingers some separation. We want it in here where these two bits meet, also here where these two bits meet, here where this bit meets. Just go around the edge, go around the edge of the forearm, around the edge there, and there. Okay. Just trying to blend those two together. All right. All right, so now we want to bring some kind of soreness around the sores, I guess. I'm going to use a contrast paint. This is Magus Purple, and that's just because it's already thinner. So it's just going to tint, but I want to get around where these sores are, these sores, so it looks like the skin is distressed by the open wounds. We'll get a little layer around here. Are these open sores? It looks like this might be a cut with some stuff oozing out of it, so let's get some in there underneath this bit. We definitely want some all in here. Since it's a contrast paint, I don't have to be ultra careful. Just tinting the skin in these areas, and we're going to paint inside of them too. And then the contrast paint, which is nice, is it doesn't completely cover the edge highlight around the sores because the way that they're molded, and so you still get that good separation. We can go in and reinforce it later if we need to. Oh god, this is a big open sore that I did not notice when I was painting. But okie dokes. Get some of that in there. Staying around there. Let's see, we got one here. Yep, nice. There, there. They've got a lot of little open sores all over their bodies, and sometimes they're hard to find, but not too big of a deal. He's got a huge gash in his leg right here. Ew. Alright, we'll put some of that in there. Come back, hit this sore too. We want this to look really gross. My wife thinks these are ultra gross. She doesn't like them one bit, and that's how I know I'm painting them right. Okay, just checking the chat. Looks like Fox is doling out stream tips, which is simply get better, noob. I do think some of it probably comes with practice, right? So in theory, I'll get better over time. You just gotta not lose your audience between now and then. But you guys are cool. You'll bear with me. Alright. I want to get a little bit of soreness right here, because I don't think it's coming through. And then a little bit more around here. I'm just stippling that in. And then down underneath here. Okay, so his open wound looks pretty gross. There's some black in there, but we're going to go with a darker color, I think. So we'll get Vulpus Pink. Vulpus Pink is a super pigmented color, especially compared to Magus Purple. I don't know if you can even just see it on the palette how dark it is in comparison. So this one we'll use a little more sparingly. Let me get a tip on my brush. So we're gonna go on the bottom side of here. We'll catch more in here, inside the wounds, and we're gonna paint the inside of the wounds. I think I already said that, but I want to get the most darkest of recess. Yeah, see that Vulpus Pink really fills in these wounds over here that still have a little black in them, and it kind of blends it all into a nice dark color that hides my crimes of totally missing it the first time on the open sores. This open sore here, very dark. We'll get around here just on the bottom. I can't tell if that's supposed to be a wound, but we'll hit it anyway. We'll pretend like it is. I want to get in there, get the bottom part of that. There, and then one more time the bottom there. I think that's probably good for that pink. I don't want to use it too much because it is such a strong color. It's kind of weird, right? Because you paint the sores red, but that would imply that they have some kind of blood or something still flowing through them. I want to get this one too. And I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. I don't know how Papa Nurgle works. Our grandfather Nurgle it is. Now we want to make all the little boils. You will never say get good. Alright, well, No, you say it in the like polite British way, where it's, to my understanding, British insults as a whole are very much like Southern insults, like "bless your heart," they say in Texas or anywhere in the South, and it sounds like they're saying something positive, but they're really saying something terrible at you. You just don't know it. They're saying it in a really polite way. Um, this is Plague Bear's flesh. We're using that to hit all of the little boils. So these little bumps, um, just so that it's not all just purple. It also, because the armor is green, it will help pull that together, and I'll add a little, I'd say coolness, because green is a cool color, but this is really yellow. This is a really yellow green. So not so much, but it does help give it that really kind of icky look. So we're just hitting them on all the bumps. There's not he doesn't have a whole lot on the front. There's a cluster of them here, kind of all in this area, but and maybe in here, and we'll maybe hit those with the dot highlight. Maybe not. I actually think I like them without, but we'll see. We'll see when everything gets done. My plan is to paint all of the guys in my army. So I'm not going to paint the base here. I don't have the other ones based because this is not the base that's going to stay on. I want to make a swamp base using is it resin? Then there's exceptions like Paul. Yeah, Paul insults you to his face, but that means he loves you, is what he told me. He could have been lying though. Oh yeah, so that was like, what was I talking about before I read that comment? The I paint. I want to put these guys all on a swamp base made out of resin, so that they're kind of like walking through water, and I can't do that just yet because I don't have the fundage to get the materials required to do that, and I'm painting off camera, but I'm just trying to see these dots, and they're kind of small, and I don't have a cool helmet like Fox does. Yeah, so I don't have the materials necessary and can't acquire the materials necessary to make the resin water base, but that is ultimately the goal, is to just gonna put a little green in here to make it really gross looking, to put them on swamp bases. And so my plan is, because I don't know what all units go in, I don't have the book. These ones were gifted to me. I was told my brother might get me the Start Collecting box for my birthday, which is in August. So I don't want to finalize everything and then realize, oh, I need to make a slight adjustment here for this. So my plan is to take them all to 90%, then base them, and then do the last 10% like production line, the whole army as a whole. So we'll see. We'll see how long that takes. It might be a while. This is eventually going to be green, but we're going to leave it alone because I want to do something more there. Maybe get some of this in here too. Alright, so I think that's most of the boils on his body. He does look really gross. The green is pretty unnerving in the spots that it's in. We'll just hit maybe one more time around these that I don't think have enough color around them. But yeah, so that's my plan. Take them to 90% and then do in a production line the last 10% so they're all coherent. Whether or not that works, we'll see. I've never actually painted an army, a whole army. So yeah, but I do like these guys. I think it would be cool to play an army of these. Alright, and now let's see, we got, if we keep it to 2 hours like everybody else's streams, we got about, ew, what the heck? That wasn't mixed up enough. We got about 20 minutes left. So yeah, Hugh Laurie is British. Dr. House himself is American. As a person who watched House when it came on TV, or I guess as it came on TV, so yeah, you know, waiting every week. This is the Messy Desert for anybody who wants to know. I'm using this for the inside, the base color of the insides of the swords so that they kind of look like fat, I guess. These guys are fat, at least. They're fat now. That was a question I was asking earlier, and I don't think I actually got out of my mouth. But I was wondering earlier, do these Rotbringers, do they start as normal-sized men, and then they just bloat up with disease and whatnot until they get to this size? Or, you know, because there are no thin Rotbringers, which makes me believe that they are probably all were originally just people, and this is bloat, not fat. But we are painting the insides of the swords like they are fat. I'm gonna leave this one to be blue, like the intestines, because that's what I did on this guy. I don't know what the inside of us looks like, but I imagine like our stomachs and stuff are like these pale blue color, and our intestines are, and stuff like that. So that might be like the back of his kidney, which I guess would be red. Or, well, I might be thinking of kidney beans. But I'm going to make it blue anyway. It could be his intestines. They kind of swirl, and I don't know the inside of anatomy. I'm not a doctor. But they swirl around inside of you. But yeah, so as a person who watched House as it came on, I did not know that Hugh Laurie was British. I had never seen anything he was in. I didn't watch. What is this? The Laurie and the one he's in with the bipolar comedian who plays the gay priest in V for Vendetta, or Sherlock Holmes' brother. You guys will know it because you probably grew up with it, but we didn't have that show out here. So when I saw him in, I think it was Stuart Little, and he had a British accent, the first time I just thought he was just like playing a British accent person. And I said, oh, that's funny. And then I saw him do an interview, and he had the British accent in the interview, and I said, oh, he must be British. My American-centric mind told me everybody who acted in Hollywood was American. And that's... Even like, I thought like Hugh Grant was just doing a British accent. Not that he was British. But in our schools here, they don't really teach you much about the rest of the world. We're the center of the universe. which is probably how we got into the situation we are in today. Alright, so yeah, this looks relatively, especially this one. And I might get a little bit of gloss coat. And Fry, there you go. Stephen Fry, thank you. Yes, he is an awesome person. His Twitter is one of the best. So, yeah, I think that will be a good enough base coat for fat. I also don't know if fat's yellow, but you know, I want it to look gross. So when you think of yellow stuff under skin, to me that's gross. And apparently to my wife too. Doctors, don't at me because I don't know it. Okay, so let me do one more because I want to cover it. We're gonna hit it again. Since we hit the base coat here, we lost some of the details on the inside. So some of these, I just want to brighten it a little bit more so that I can put that purple back in, and then that'll kind of fill in some of the recesses to bring it back down, or to fill in the recesses to give it a little more detail so it looks lumpy like the mold actually is. Especially in here, it's really hard to tell that there's a indent right in there because the yellow is so bright. So get our purple again, and we'll just touch it to the paper towel first, drop it in there. And again, this purple is not super pigmented, so we'll stipple it in, but that I think gives it a better look. We'll come back here, get this bit with purple, and I think there was one more spot. Well, I guess we'll hit these, but not a big deal. Right here in the arm. Okay, so we got that, and the last bit to do the skin that I think I could get done in 10 minutes without going too fast is the intestines, which we're going to do blue. So I'll start with the fang, which is the storm, or not the storm, the space wolves base color. I was going to call them storm wolves, but we'll get this blue. It's already pretty thin, even though it is a base coat color, and that's again just because of having to thin it down to get it into the bottle. So we're just going to cover the intestines that are hanging out with this blue color without going into the crevices. We still want the purple to be in there because it's supposed to be, I guess, bloody, or I don't know, gross. So we're just doing a light brush over the top, and they can intermingle a little bit, having the color fluctuate between, I think, the blue and the purplish pink gives it a slightly more interesting vibe. So I'm not covering it completely. Alright, we're just having the frontmost parts that are exposed to the air be blue. Although I guess that's probably backwards, right? Because your blood is supposed to be blue in your body, turns red when it hits the air because of the iron. But this is fantasy painting. It can be. Oh, thanks for hanging in there, Candygram. I'm gonna try to be doing this every Saturday, same time, just to get into the habit, and we'll finish this guy next Saturday. But thanks for coming by. Okay, 9 minutes left. So we're not going to leave it that blue, right? That would be crazy town. We are going to highlight that up a little bit. That's just our base coat. So we'll get a touch of rust gray, which we're going to start graying them out to that sort of light blue white color that the other ones have. And that was not mixed well either, but that's okay. I'm not using much because right now they look kind of purple. So let's hit the fronts again. Yeah, there we go. And then the next layer we'll start adding in the little striations, because I imagine, based on the way that intestines look in anime, that they're ridged or ribbed, I guess. That sounds like a Trojan style. Ribbed. Okay. So, yep, and the blue gives it a nice contrast from the warmth of the rest of the body. It makes it nicely visually interesting without pulling away too much attention and being jarring. Man, this painting expedition is going a lot. Making less mistakes than I thought. Must be because I got the Gross Models hat on. I need a model making guru hat. You got any of those in your store? And the better question is, can I get it with a flat brim? Alright. So now we've got kind of our base slash lower mid-tone. And we've got the first highlight and the second highlight left, and then we're done. Ooh, don't grab that peach color. You just turn that green. Okay. Lesson learned there. Watch how you doing the brush. Okay. So now we'll take the, what is this? Fenrisian gray. We're just basically taking all the colors for the Space Wolves, but just slightly adding little tiny lines to the intestines so that they look like they have texture. And since we did this with the glaze consistency, they're going to be really faint. So I'm going to give it a second to dry, and then we'll go back again. Little tiny lines. Okay. Good. And then we will take our Wurspat bone, which is this yellow, and we'll mix it with the Fenrisian gray to make the lightest of our highlights. Maybe that one. So it's cool. for our last bit of painting for the day. We have again just tiny striations to give it texture. I don't even know if you can see those on camera. They're pretty light and they're meant to be. Oh, I forgot this bit back here. 4 minutes. We can do it. Let's see. We started here. So I'll just tap in the base. And while that's still wet, grab the rust gray and tap it in up top for a little bit of wet blending. And then maybe even while that's still wet, we can grab our Fenrisian gray tap it in the top circle. Look how, ugh, Jesus, don't put the brush in your mouth. Especially not with surfactant in the water. That was terrible. I didn't call you, dog. Alright, and we add the top highlight there. Boom! Quick and easy. Done. So we got all the skin. Yeah, I might tidy up a tiny bit when I can look at it a little bit closer. But that is where we're gonna be today. So 2 hours, not too bad. I think we can get this guy done in maybe 1.5 more sessions, if we're not too crazy. But next time we'll start Saturday, same time, so 6 p.m. British, 10 p.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. or 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So we'll continue on this guy. I won't go any further with this. I'll leave him here. I've got a Space Wolf to practice on. Anywho, so we'll come back. We'll start with the boots and the cloth and the leather, because those things are kind of intertwined under the armor. And then the last day we'll do the armor plates, and like I said, we're not going to base these until I get the rest and I can base them all in one go. Maybe one of you guys can tell me if there's a rule that whatever size base he's on right now, he has to be on the same size base. I don't know, but since I plan on playing with this, I figure I should find out. Otherwise, again, thanks everybody who joined and who are watching it after the fact. I will see you all next Saturday. I don't know how to end shows.